Hi, everyone. This is Stephen Pu. I am the co-founder of Taraxa, and today we're here to talk about informal transactional agreements. Okay, so if you've been following Taraxa, you know that Taraxa was designed to actually track informal transactional agreements and data. So, what does that mean? What is an informal agreement or informal transaction? What are we talking about here? Well, I think it's best to perhaps give a few examples of different types of transactional agreements. Okay, so we have this two by two here written here, and on the x-axis, right, from left to right, is increasing inconvenience, speed, decreasing cost, right? So things move much faster, and they're very cheap, and they're very easy to do as you move to the right side. And on the vertical axis, we have clarity, right? So as you move from bottom to up, things get a lot more clear, right? Things are clearer, things are more traceable, things are more verifiable. There's less confusion, right? There's less disputes. Okay. So we have on the upper left corner, right, legal contracts, right? So this is something that everyone understands, right? You have the new business. There's a lot of things in business or in everyday life that requires legal contracts. You have lawyers draft up a contract and you talk to the stakeholders. Everyone signs it. It's very clear. It's very detailed. Typically, it's very very long, and it's not the most convenient thing for you to do. It takes a long time. Probably costs a lot of money, but it's very clear, right? It's legally binding in whatever jurisdiction that you signed it with. And you had a lot of people define everything in great detail in very specific legal language so that it's very clear and it's definitely very verifiable. There are typically witnesses and signatures, many copies everywhere, right? So legal contracts, right? Very, very clear and but not the most convenient thing, right? Not very cheap. We're not walking every day, around every day, signing legal contracts all the time for everything that we do. That just doesn't happen. Okay. Well, let's take it a step down a little bit. Well, what is a little bit more convenient than legal contracts, but less clear, but still overall pretty clear? Well, then we go to everyday operations, right? So we have project management, for example. So project management in relation to legal contracts is sort of like legal contracts are what you sign when there are very large milestones, right? You have a big order or a big new customer coming into your business, and you sign a very very large, very complicated legal contracts. And when the project is actually running, right, then what you would like to do is to push the entire operation of the project into some sort of project management software, right? And this is where actually work is being done, right? So different people, different stakeholders, different partners, contractors, service providers, they're all working together, internal to your company, internal to your business, internal to your organization, or people that are external, right? Partners. Everyone's working together to make sure that the project gets executed according to the broad strokes of the contract, right? So project management is a lot, each process, each task that are defined on the project manager individually, they're a lot less complicated than, of course, legal contract, right? But nevertheless, what project management does is that it requires highly structured information input, right? You can't just enter random stuff into your project management software. You have to follow a certain process. There's probably approval processes. There's probably sign-offs. Many people need to see it. People are tracking its progress, right? So project management is really sort of an executional, operational type of agreements that people are making between people who are collaborating on a specific project. And it happens a lot more frequently. It's slightly more convenient, but maybe less clear than legal contracts because not every single detail is defined using very specific legal language, right? Okay. What about all the way to the bottom right corner here, right? What is super convenient, but man, it's not very clear at all, right? Well, these are informal conversations, right? Informal conversations people have over chat, like WhatsApp, WeChat, Telegram, whatever types of chatting program, or texting, SMS, email, or whatever other types of very baseline communication tools that everyone uses every single day, right? So what are the type of things that are happening here? Well, these are sort of just very brief, very informal conversations. People are writing each other, It's typically asynchronous. Multiple people are involved in discussions. Sometimes the conversations, part of it is business, part of it is personal. Personal and business mixed together. Maybe multiple different kind of topics get mixed together into one. It's a very convenient way to communicate with people, but also the least clear way of communicating with people. Okay. So if we were to quantify, sort of, well, how much of the world's transactional agreements or agreements in general made fall into these categories, right? Well, you wouldn't be really surprised to hear that over 80% of transactional agreements are actually residing here, right? They're just texts, chats, emails flying around all over the place, right? And it's very easy for people who are working together to just quickly coordinate with one another. Hey, I'm going to do this. Are you okay with it? Yeah, let's do it, right? People are just going to do it. Very fast, very easy. This is what happens most of the time. Over 80% of transactional agreements are actually happening on baseline communication tools such as chat, texting, email, whatever, right? They're not structured. They're very convenient, not the clearest thing. When you deal with something like project management, right? This is, something that's very structured, it follows a specific process. This is probably, a little bit less than 20%, for example, right? This is where a lot of structured information happens. They reside in organizations, ERP system, project management system, whatever you like to use, right? Jira, Trello, SAP, whatever, right? Legal contracts, of course, they don't happen that frequently. Less than 1% of time, people are actually signing legal contracts, because they're very expensive and complicated and slow, right? People are not walking around signing those all the time. So why has Taraxa really selected this, informal transactional agreements to really focus on? Well, first of all, this 80% here, this 80% of the problem here, no one's really looking at it, right? It's very difficult to address this problem because things are happening formally inside informal conversations are very difficult to capture, right? Because they're flying around everywhere. It's disconnected. Most of the time, you don't really know if people are talking about business or this specific processes or specific projects. It's mixed together with other conversations. It's not clear what people are actually saying. People keep losing it all the time, right? It's very difficult to capture. And also, even if you do capture, it's very difficult to verify, right? In fact, a lot of the data that's actually captured, people try to capture this type of data into enterprise management, project management software, right? In my former life as a strategy consultant, I walked into so many Fortune 100 offices, and the executives will tell me that the data residing in their ERP systems are not useful, right? They're actually not reliable or just outright garbage, right? Because people have tried to just input a lot of the stuff here into this, and they're incompatible, right? This requires highly structured, well-defined, process-oriented data. This is just informal conversations, right? So very hard to capture. And after the fact, even if you capture them, it's very difficult to verify, right? Because you don't know where that information is coming from, right? Legal contracts, very clear. People have signatures on them. There are witnesses, legally defined language, very clear, very easy to verify. A lot less easy to verify for project management, but these people have accounts, identities are very clear. It goes through specific processes, people sign off on it. So verifiability is still pretty high, right? Here, very difficult to verify, right? Specific information capture, you don't know where it came from, who said what when is not very clear at all. So this type of problem, this type of informal transactional agreements is really a very much unaddressed market in the world today. What we try to do, the conventional way to actually address this problem is really for someone to say, oh, let's create another app, right? To replace all this stuff that's unstructured. Well, let's just create another app and force everyone to use that instead of using this. Well, typically what happens is that people keep using these and they ignore the app, right? So that's not a really good way to do it, right? Okay, so why is it important, right? So why does it matter? Who cares about this 80%, right? Why does that really matter? Well, actually, one of the core reasons why large organizations or complex projects don't really perform very well, they slow down, they're not as innovative, right? They have higher risk and higher costs. It's because they simply don't have enough access. They don't have access to market. They don't have access to first-hand market information, right? So why are small organizations or small teams so good and so fast? Why are they innovative and very, very responsive to the market? Well, because they are very, very close to the market. They're a small team. Most of the people on the team are probably close to the market. They respond to market information very, very quickly, and they execute on it, right? When you get to a larger organization, you get to more complex projects, most people in that organization or project are not at the front line. So they don't have access to first-hand market information. And that information needs to be relayed layer by layer, disseminated throughout the organization or the project, right? And because most of the data, remember, we create are this type of uncapturable and unverifiable data, it becomes very difficult for a large organization or any kind of complex project to take advantage of that data, right? This data is essentially unavailable to them. So that's why it's not a surprise that they move very slowly and are uninnovative, right? And this is a problem just with human organizations in general, right? Ever since there was a human civilization, this has been a problem. This really has been a problem. So this is the problem to really tackle, right? This is the really problem to tackle, and it's a very, very big problem, and it's becoming worse because our entire world keeps moving faster and faster. Things only become more complex, not less complex, and people are increasingly relying upon these type of transactional agreements, this mode of communication to actually coordinate projects and advance projects, right? So this is a big problem. It's getting worse. It prevents large organizations and complex projects from scaling and from being innovative, right? And this is why Taraxa is targeting this problem. And in the next video, we'll talk about how Taraxa specifically targets this type of problem. Thank you.